Hey guys, Dodge here. Hope you're doing well. As I mentioned, I am heading to East Palestine as well as New Hampshire to cover some serious issues there, but wanted to make a pit stop in the city of brotherly love. That's right, Philadelphia, to hear RFK give his speech and explain why he is switching his candidacy from previously a Democratic Party candidate for president to now an official independent candidate for president. So I thought it was important to go there, interview some people. First, I'll give you a little rundown as to who I think Robert F. Kennedy's candidacy will hurt the most. And it's not what you think. I think the common knowledge is that he takes away a lot of votes from Trump, because a lot of people are saying, well, yes, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in his legacy certainly is identified with the Democratic Party. But with the issues he's talking about, especially in terms of skepticism with the COVID vaccine, he may very well peel votes away from Trump. So I did some interesting man on the street interviews, and out of the 6 people I interviewed, 4 of them said they would have voted for Biden if Robert F. Kennedy were not on the ballot. So that was surprising to me. And the first person that we'll hear from is a friend of mine named Chris Thrasher. I ran into a friend of mine from my Libertarian Party days. I used to be a member of the Libertarian Party back in 2008. I was a delegate for former senator who has since passed away, a great man, Mike Gravel. He decided to switch from the Democratic Party in 2008 to the Libertarian Party, and I was a delegate for him at the Libertarian Convention, so I got to know this gentleman named Christopher Thrasher. And he is an excellent person to talk with, and I'm really glad I ran into him, because he will be able to explain the ballot access process and how much of a Herculean task it is for Robert F. Kennedy to get on the ballot in all 50 states. My first thought about this whole kickoff was I assumed that Robert F. Kennedy would be joining the Libertarian Party ticket, that he'd run as an official Libertarian Party candidate. Keep in mind, the Libertarian Party is the 3rd most successful party in the United States.
So I was the ballot access director for Gary Johnson and Bill Wild's campaign in
Good work.
2016. That was the first time since Perot that there was a candidate on all 50 state ballots other than a Republican or a Democrat. I'm here to have some conversations to see how the campaign is going to approach the process. It's a pretty daunting project.
Two questions here. The perfect person to ask. The first is, Kennedy met with Angela McArdle. There was some talk he might join the Libertarian Party. People would automatically assume the Libertarian Party would have automatic ballot access in at least 48 states. That might not be the case. Why do you think he decided not to go to the LP?
I personally, as someone who rescued the ballot access, the 50-state ballot access in 2020, ran the whole thing in 2016, I would be very surprised if the Libertarian Party comes even close to 60 or to 50-state ballots this time around. Because it doesn't have the same infrastructure.
They don't have the same activist base. They're just not willing to.
It's really unfortunate,
Because that's been common. You think automatically the Libertarian Party is the 3rd biggest party with ballot access, and maybe every state but 2. But it sounds like that's changing, which is fascinating.
It is, and it's always there's certain states where you always have to petition. You always have to go through the
process,
right,
no
matter what party. So it's just a question of would the party be able to get over
the boots on the ground, right?
And I think, frankly, with the Kennedy campaign, there's an opportunity to appeal to a greater segment of the voters than what the current leadership of the Libertarian Party would prefer. And I think that had to have I think that had to have a lot of effect on that kind of decision making. It is going to be interesting to see what route the campaign takes, because there's a lot of options.
Right.
There's also a lot of options to have all sorts of different ballot accesses for parties, because remember, it's not about a national party, it's about the states.
Previously, they've had ballot access in at least 48 states. Robert F. Kennedy even met with Angela McArdle, who's the recent Libertarian Party chair. So everything looked as if Robert F. Kennedy would be the official Libertarian Party candidate. He'd have to run for the nomination, of course, and amass the delegates and run in a few primaries. But the front runner for the Libertarian Party nomination now is the gentleman who founded Adult Friend Finder. So I would not say that competition is fierce in terms of credentials and well-qualified candidates. So it seemed like this, given that Robert F. Kennedy, who is progressive on a lot of social issues, which the libertarians are as well, think marijuana legalization, think being a little more pro-choice and not as punitive on abortion, think being a little more understanding on immigration, although Kennedy mentioned that he did switch his immigration policy in the speech. But being anti-war, that's a very big thing as well, and being anti-corporate welfare. So there's a lot in common that Robert F. Kennedy had with the Libertarian Party. But what was interesting is about a year ago, and I only know this because I have some interest in the Libertarian Party myself, there was essentially a hostile takeover within that party. And the right-wing group won, and a woman named Angela McArdle became the chair. Two big things that the right-wing plank did that pissed a lot of the libertarians off was looking at what the party stood for and officially changing their platform. So before, the libertarians said that they were pro-choice, meaning pro-abortion. McArdle, with her faction, decided that abortion would not be mentioned in the platform of the state Libertarian Party, and that each member could kind of choose for themselves. I would say being libertarian is being pro-choice. One can make an argument that being libertarian, fighting for an unborn person, that could be, being pro-life can be libertarian as well. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but that's the argument that people made. The other thing that people got very annoyed by was within that party there was a clause added, there's a clause deleted that said they stood against bigotry in any form. Now, this seems like a very basic thing, especially if you're libertarians. Libertarians don't like bigots. They don't like people interfering with other people, especially if it's based on religion, sex, race, or anything else. So, I would say the Libertarian Party is probably the least bigoted party, honestly, because they're all about the rights of the individual and not grouping them together with other people and looking at somebody for themselves. But that pissed a lot of people off.
So Kennedy's going in alone, not doing libertarian. It's more of a Herculean task. You're the expert to ask, more so than New York Times, more so than anybody else. What do you have to do to get on the ballot as an independent candidate? How much does it cost, and how much time do you have?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 million signatures.
Altogether, nationwide, you're saying?
Nationwide.
Okay,
And
1 million.
There are...
And it could be voters of any party.
Well, not in every state. For example,
right.
Texas is a very small window to get tens of thousands of signatures. I can't remember directly offhand, and you have to more than double how many signatures
to throw half of them out.
So you'd have to go.
It's like New York.
Yeah, exactly. It's unbelievable. You've got a large amount of hurdles to climb. That's not even counting the regulatory and the filings and the filing fees.
Right.
It's a Herculean task. It's something that can be done, and it can also be done with an activist base to help.
Right.
But and as far as expenses, I put together a quote with my firm for an independent candidate who thought about running months ago, and the total came out to anywhere between $35 and $45 million. I don't think that the Kennedy campaign will have to spend that much, because I do think there's an activist base to help. But any way you look at it, it's a large task.
Do you think that they're running out of time, or do you think timing is okay? I guess you're doing this 13 months in advance. You're okay.
I think now is the time to begin the process, and now is also the time to make sure that there's contingency plans in place. Because I always joke when people were like, "What do you actually do?" I'm like, "Well, I'm a firefighter."
Right.
Something's on fire, I can put it out. And with ballot access, there are going to be constant fires, and it's just about being able to be on the ground and be able to adapt.
Well put.
I think there are a lot of voters that are pissed off about the establishment and are pissed off about corporate welfare and the widening income gap, but feel that Trump is racist, is not a nice person, is not that decent of a human being. But Joe Biden is the ultimate corporate shill that you could ever ask for. Now, Robert F. Kennedy is here, talking about breaking up the big banks, talking about putting power in the hands of the people, and really taking government to task as speaking truth to power. One specific point that Kennedy made is he said he changed his policy about immigration from 6 months previous. Kennedy said he was more pro-open border, but then he went to Yuma, Arizona, where I used to work, and other places along the border and felt like there had to be a solution. But he said he understands why people are coming here, and he specifically said he did not want to villainize any of the immigrants. Compare that with Trump, who says, yes, we need a secure border. Maybe everybody agrees with that. But are most of these Mexicans rapists and are bad hombres? Or are they decent human beings where we need to create a streamlined process? The other difference, which is more libertarian in Kennedy's part, is he advocates for a more streamlined, efficient, quicker, effective process to get deserving people, immigrants, into this country who deserve to be there. The USA is incredibly restrictive with visas, whether it be tourism visas or working visas for people from Latin American countries. So he suggests having a secure border, adding more security and more customs in that regard to make sure everybody who's getting through is examined thoroughly. But if they are deserving, then that pathway to citizenship should be quick and non-punitive. Completely different than Trump, who I think more wants to defend the white nature, the white majority of this country. We're speaking to very different things. One is security in the U.S. and looking at immigrants in a humane way, but realizing something needs to be done about this crisis. And the other one is a hatred, in my opinion, for people who are darker than you, who don't speak your language. So again, a lot of these things that Trump has brought up, but has put such a vicious message around it, has turned a lot of people off. And the original theory was that now that Kennedy's in the race, Democrats don't have to vote for Biden. But I think there's a lot of turned off Republicans and a lot of turned off independents who liked a lot of the policies of Trump. Remember, the economy did get more efficient, did get better, but don't like his violent and racist, and some might even say un-American rhetoric. And so they never vote for Trump, even if Trump was correct on all the issues. Just due to the fact that these voters find him to be an asshole means they won't vote for him. So if there's only 2 guys on the ballot, then they vote for Joe Biden. But all these people I was talking with saying Biden's not, too old to lead. He's completely out to lunch. Inflation is spiking. Gas prices are continuing to get higher. He has not been a good president. But they would still never vote for Trump. Now they could vote for Kennedy.
So you're a registered Democrat. Who do you vote for, if you don't mind me asking, in 2020?
In 2020, I voted for Biden.
Interesting. And Obama back before him? And Hillary?
I did vote for Hillary. Yeah.
Wow, so this is a departure.
I was actually here when she was on her way to be anointed, which didn't happen.
How cool,
and this
right?
was all packed.
Yes.
But it was really a wild experience to be there.
Wow, you're right there. So you're in the thick of it. So you were so I would say you'd be a Hillary supporter back then.
Yeah.
No judging. Yeah, and she just stood for a lot of good stuff.
Although that said, at the time, I've always wanted to be a quote-unquote big developer like Trump since I was a real estate major.
Oh, cool. I like that.
But it's all
have a commonality
when you really get down to what is he really?
Right.
Which is what people. He really isn't the apprentice. It's a lot more than that.
There's a lot deeper.
But he puts on a good show.
Puts on a very good show. Well put. And so that's interesting. If RFK were not in this race, would you go for Trump or Biden or stay home?
Probably Biden.
Interesting. So peeling a little bit from Biden. I'm the same way.
And I think Biden has done a great job. But I think Biden really wants to kind of be a transitional president.
Yeah.
But the job's not done, and there's no one else that's ready to take that mantle.
You have to have confidence.
But at the end of the day, politics is about who's the alternative to two evils.
Yeah, right.
A lot of what Bobby talked about today.
Right, now we don't have a lesser, now we have a non-evil. Right.
It's like, let's just let them fight, we'll just go back to the castle, it's all good.
Do you think one of the things that Kennedy is catching on is he's talking about the anti-establishment stuff? I think you overheard that Trump is talking about, but in a kinder, gentler, non-vitriolic way. It's not going after it. And so maybe that's the secret sauce to actually winning.
I hope
that's
so.
what I kind of think.
Yeah.
Because people hear, maybe, big pharma needs to be challenged, maybe trade needs to be protected. But do we have to hate immigrants and call them names?
Yeah, exactly.
Do we have to, control? Do we have to be regressive on abortion?
Right.
So I think he's where the country's at, personally.
I'm with you.
You
And I
know?
hope the country will take the time to just be pissed off at everything.
Right.
And actually say, at the end of the day, we can always agree on what we agree on and
Right.
agree to disagree on
Right.
what we disagree on. It truly is that easy, but
Well
for
played.
some so hard.
So the common wisdom that Kennedy steals votes away from Biden because he was a Democrat, not the case. Although I will say, I've noticed in the majority report, for example, was making fun of the potential Democrats who are progressive on immigration, progressive on abortion, but who are vaccine skeptical. They say they don't exist. Well, let me tell you, I'm one of those people. I'm vaccinated. I have the Johnson & Johnson. I had the one. I didn't have the booster or anything following up with that. And I think there's a lot of research that needs to be done, and I don't know why there needs to be vaccine after vaccine after vaccine being force-fed to people. And the lockdowns were incredibly unnecessary and punitive. Perhaps for 2 weeks, some things should have been locked down. Again, I fall in the middle. I understand people did have to be protected, but closing down hiking trails, closing down outdoor spaces, all that stuff was proven that you can't spread COVID outside, all complete BS. So if you don't have any skepticism on what the government, the WHO is telling you, you have to be living under a rock. But just because you have that skepticism doesn't mean that you have a hatred of Mexican people and that you think Trump is Christ. There's a medium in this. So the people I spoke with all say that they would have supported Biden. So this ultimately hurts Biden more. There are a lot of Democrats, quite a few Democrats, who are government skeptical, but also socially progressive and try to lead with a kind heart when it comes to your fellow man. Robert Kennedy is that person, and I really liked his speech. He, again, remarking that he's not this evil right-wing plant, he didn't say Happy Columbus Day, because today is Columbus Day. He said Happy Indigenous Peoples Day, and talked about how the empire has stolen a lot of land from the Native Americans, and even had a noted Lakota chief in North Dakota speak on his behalf. And he also talked about the importance of preserving our environment and regulating some of our emissions. These are not Steve Bannon Republican talking points in any single way, shape, or form. If it was a conservative up there, they'd be saying, let's keep Christopher Columbus Day, they're trying to change our heritage, yada, yada. No. For Kennedy, he feels like the land that we're on now, we have to thank. And there's even a prayer thanking the natives. There's also, of course, Pledge of Allegiance and the prayer to the flag. But that's a progressive issue to take, to have respect to those Native Americans. And Kennedy got emotional when he talked about his father's involvement helping the Native Americans, helping the African American community, helping the Mexican American community when he ran in 1968. And he choked up, and he said he wanted to do the same thing. I think Kennedy zeroes in on vulnerable people and people who don't have a voice in the political sphere or in the mainstream media.
Well, it's going back to constitutional rights, and I think the whole idea when the pandemic kicked in and we were losing our rights, that's really what motivated me to take a hard look at this. And I think there was an unmasking and an unveiling of what actually is happening before us. And it's almost like you can't move anywhere until you begin to understand what the truth is and begin to work on moving in a direction towards solutions.
And for the first half of the speech, he came off as kind of unremarkable and stiff, but then you saw his magic and his emotion. He doesn't have that soaring oratory as his brother had, as his father had, or his uncle had, but he has emotion and heart in his speeches. And you can see that emotion, which that's going to make him a very compelling candidate. And once people get to know him and hear him speak a little more, even though he has the voice, which is kind of interesting, he knows how to work that and how to break that voice up at a moment where their emotion is called for, and people could really feel what he's feeling. He is an empathetic speaker, and I think, yeah, some of his COVID stuff is a little out there, certainly, and I think he's gone too far. But he's never said he's anti-vaccine. He just says there needs to be more research. But aside from that, I think he is the candidate that wants to bust up corrupt governmental control, thought control, control over COVID, control over movement, control over Americans' rights. But he doesn't want to villainize anybody. He doesn't want to villainize immigrants.
Something that nobody else has done, which was going to the border and spend like long nights and capturing on camera what's the reality and how tragic is the situation of people that are coming to this country. Because we should think there are only Latinos. No, there's people from Afghanistan, from India, from China.
Yeah.
So it's very sad, because they come here and what's happening with them. So I hope, when he gets elected, he's gonna be able to create like a speed process for immigration, for immigrants. Well, I work for American Values 2024.
Very cool.
I am in charge of raising awareness.
She's the big pack. Big deal.
Big deal. In the Latino community, I'm Latina, so I believe it's very important for minorities to learn more about Kennedy and how he can support Latinos as well as other communities.
He doesn't want to make abortion illegal across the United States or give southern states more power to make it as strict as possible. He doesn't support that. He doesn't have a hatred of immigrants. He wants more immigrants here, and he wants to make sure there's a process where they can get here quicker, and if they are qualified, to live here and become full-fledged tax-paying citizens. Completely different. So I think if you want a candidate who's against government corruption and brainwashing and control, but who is a kind human being, and I don't think Trump is kind at all, and I don't think he works well with other nations, and he has made the U.S. a laughingstock in a lot of ways. There's a lot of good things Trump has done. I'm not saying Trump has been worse than Biden. I think Biden's been worse than Trump, although it's a very stiff competition. I think both are truly remarkably awful leaders, both of them, and both of them are becoming senile. Trump now has been talking in circles and has been showing that same aspect of senility that Biden has. Both of these are crazy, crotchety old men. One is completely incompetent, Biden, and one, I think, has ill intentions, Trump. Pick your poison. I'm not going to pick any poison. Both of these people, Trump and Biden, are too old to lead. They don't have the right vision for America. Kennedy has what it takes, challenging the government in terms of cleaning up the Hudson River and challenging big corporate polluters and suing them and successfully winning. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. knows how to break up the government's efforts of complete thought control. He knows how to do that. And at the same time, he is a kind leader and a thoughtful leader and an inclusive leader. So I think he'll make the best president. I'll be following everything and further developments. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know my audience is 50-50, 50% Biden, 50% Trump, which is interesting. I'm hoping we get some Kennedy people, some people like me who just feel completely lost with both parties, completely lost, and just don't have an ounce of respect for either President Biden or former President Trump, and want somebody more youthful, intelligent, kinder, rational, independent. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So I hope you enjoy these Men on the Street interviews. Next up, we will be in East Palestine to look at the mayoral election over there and to do a little 7-month anniversary. I was there a while ago with Valuetainment, so we'll do some really cool follow-ups. But thank you guys again, as always, for watching. A little bit more about my politics at this point. Hopefully you won't unsubscribe because I have respect for hardcore conservatives, hardcore liberals, and anti-government libertarians like myself. So this is a forum where I think we could all talk with each other and get along. So leave comments if they're nasty, go for it. Just love to have a conversation going. But thank you for all the interest and appreciate you watching. Thanks, guys. Take care.